Andrew Marchand, welcome to the Sport Profile.
Thanks for having me. My pleasure.
I'm really excited for this. We were just really commiserating about how our love for interviewing has, kind of shaped us. And, something I was going to ask is how you feel your interviewing style has evolved over the course of your career, covering different things. Now you're covering the business of sports media. And I'm curious how that style differs from when you're writing about baseball or writing about football and things like that.
Yeah, I think the biggest difference is how you're talking to the people you're speaking with. In baseball, I covered the Yankees and the Mets, and so generally speaking, there were about somewhere between 8 and 11 full-time beat writers.
Right.
There's only at that point 25 players, now 26, and so when you walk into a clubhouse, you have to, you only really you kind of focus on probably the Yankees. They have more stars than other teams, but you
Sure.
focus probably about there's like 12 players, and the manager and the GM, etc. That are really the focal points. So when you're talking to them, though, you're talking to them a lot of times in groups, and that can change how you ask questions. Sometimes you don't want to ask a question because you don't want to give it away. You want to get somebody to the side.
Yeah.
But what I do now, it's more on the phone, more one-on-one. You know, a lot of it, what I do, especially now, I do longer pieces where there's a lot of interviews, but more so it's talking to people. And I would say that something, I'm not really interviewing people when you're doing that. But in a way you are like, so it's a combination of things. You're kind of having the discussion. It can be a little more casual, which is very important for reporters. If you can have casual
Absolutely.
conversations, yeah, because that gains, yeah. So the more trust you have with people, the more they trust you, and also the more knowledge you have. So,
Sure.
yeah, it's a different. What I do now is different, but they're the same principles.
Yeah.
You don't want to ask loaded questions. You want to give people a clean runway so you can get the most honest answer. Those are kind of the goals to me in questions.
Totally. No, that makes sense. You, obviously you are a sports media columnist for The Athletic right now. You've written for, you've worked at ESPN, you've worked at the New York Times. You are now hosting your own podcast, the Marchand Sports Media Podcast. You run that Substack very, very well. Is an inspiration for me, for sure. And, I'm curious. You articulated a little bit, before we hit record, but why does sports media resonate with you so much in addition to other beats? What about
Yeah,
it
so I
sings to you?
Yeah, so I have just a, I don't know if it's an odd fascination with it, but for whatever reason, for me, I'm just passionate about it. I would say it this way.
Sure.
We talked about baseball. I
Yeah.
covered baseball for a long time. I like baseball a lot, but do I love baseball? My buddy Tyler Kepner is a columnist for The Athletic who I was on the Met beat with a long time ago.
Mhm.
He loves baseball. Like I once asked Tyler, if you had a choice between you can't watch baseball all year, but you can eat like a normal person, or you can watch baseball and you can only eat lettuce for the whole year. Uh, he said to me, his answer was, "Would I get sick if he ate the lettuce all year?" So he would definitely consider eating only lettuce for
I don't know if you get sick. I think that'd be encouraged by some folks.
yeah, I'm not sure if you get sick or not, but it would be difficult to eat lettuce as your only
Without
substance.
question.
So, point being is that for this though, we were talking before we went on the podcast. Like I
Yeah.
love, your enthusiasm, your passion, and the way you studied it. So I enjoy those conversations. It's
Sure.
not and not that I didn't enjoy talking about baseball. It's just baseball's a little bit longer. So for whatever reason, I'm just very into the coverage.
Yeah.
When I came out of college, I had an opportunity that I turned down for a second interview to get into programming with ESPN.
Hmm.
And I wanted to pursue, at that point I was a sports writer, very small newspapers in Texas. Um, but I and so it's just a passion. I just
It
love
it
it. I'm
clicks
very
with you.
lucky for that. Yeah, I'm very lucky that but to answer exactly why, like, I love sports too.
Sure.
Um, but I just yeah, it's just something for whatever reason it's it's my thing.
Yeah. It's it's a very pure and genuine feeling when something like that resonates with you, because once that kind of sets in, you just run with it. I felt that way a little bit with sports business, when I started at Sportico, because sports business was like one of the few things I hadn't done in sports journalism before. And that's why I got so into it, because it was like that one area I never did. And had I known about it in college, oh my God, I would have never written a game story in college. I would have
Yeah.
covered the business of sports the whole time.
Yeah, well, because the other thing about sports business is that, and we saw this a lot during COVID, the major sports leagues, they're run through media. I mean, that's
Yeah,
their biggest, for the most part, for most of the major leagues, it's their biggest revenue source. And if you went back to COVID, and this was beneficial, I was at the New York Post at the time, is that a lot of the decisions made in terms of how many games were played were based on the television agreements and how they
right.
could get fully paid. And so, so I kind of had a beat on how decisions were being made, which helped us at the Post, break a bunch of stories. And so, yeah, I think it's it's the underpinning of sports, and I also think, and I've seen this, is people are interested. Like the idea. First off, everyone has an opinion when they watch a game on a Sunday
Yes,
or a Monday. That's number one. Number two, like the NFL deals they're going to redo. Right now
right.
they're for $110 billion in excess for 11 years. Those deals are going to be, they're going to be shorter, so the overall number won't be as high.
Still a
But
lot of
the
money.
it no, it's going to be a lot of money, and so it's big business. It's important business, and so, um, yeah. So I think that's how I've gotten here.
Are the media rights agreements public information, like the CBAs are? Like, could you pull up a
No, I
PDF of those
mean
or
it's
no?
not. You have to, yeah, you have to uncover it.
That's
But they
that's
get
what I thought.
out. Yeah, generally speaking, people, there's 2 sides that
Yeah,
agree to it, and then there's other sides who lose. So to get to the number, um, sometimes people fudge it a little bit here or there, and then you have to, call it. I have a method in terms of I've reported a lot of
of
salaries
course.
as well that aren't public. And, I don't just take someone, one person tells you something, obviously that's not gonna do it. You
Yeah.
gotta have multiple sources.
Right.
But yeah, it's not just public. Sometimes it can be public information,
Yeah.
depending if there's suits or something, but it's not just something that's just public.
Yeah, I never knew if that was, like, part of, like, the collective bargaining agreement, or, like, you could pull up the NFL CBA and, in 2 minutes if you wanted to. That's out there, and read it. It's very educational. I remember I had a professor actually challenge us to do that, and in college, it was interesting. Um, Speaking of the NFL, you had done a story recently where you you had talked about the potential of a paywalled Super Bowl.
Yeah.
How close are we to that?
I don't think a paywall Super Bowl is gonna happen, but I do think somebody with a
Like a streaming?
paywall, yes, um, very much could, like, if Amazon Prime Video were to get a Super Bowl, I
Yeah,
don't think that's, impossible,
sure.
but I think it would be in front of the paywall.
Interesting. I
That's
think so
how it would
too,
go
yeah.
down. Yeah, that's how it would go down. So, that's um, how it ends up.
This is a very interesting question, and I'm very, very curious because of the nature of your beat, because of the nature of the work that you do. And I want you to really think about this. I don't know if you may, I hope you know this off the top of your head, but if not, that's fine too. How many streaming services do you pay for personally,
Well, I mean,
or that you
I pay for
have?
all of them. Yeah, okay, 'cause I pay, yeah, I got no illegal, streams. That's a good question. Now, mine's a little different. I have Spectrum,
Okay.
which includes you get the apps for ESPN, Paramount Plus, HBO Max, Peacock. They all come inclusive in that. So all the major networks I have,
Okay.
um, and then Netflix, Prime Video. I mean, I got mostly everything. I
Okay.
go in and out on Apple. I don't always have Apple.
Yeah.
I don't really, for my job, um, they have some sports, but,
Right.
so I go in and out with Apple.
Yeah.
So but I have, like, yeah, I have a million streaming services. This is a common issue for everybody. It's my job, so for me, it's a little bit different in terms
Of
of
course.
decision making. Although, there are things with, I've asked, the family, like, "Hey, is anybody watching Disney Plus?" Now I get again, Disney Plus now comes with Spectrum's done a good job. I'd say YouTube
Okay.
and Spectrum have done a really good job of I think people want it to be simpler, and, um, they would like it to be cheaper. I don't know if we're gonna get the
Yeah.
cheaper, because it is
It's
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 mind
it's
numbing and
hefty.
it's yes. And yeah, and they also need to figure it out so it's easier because, you know, your generation, they don't I'm not saying you, hopefully isn't true, but they don't like to pay for stuff, so they like the illegal streams and that stuff. My point is that, well, if you make the consumer feel like it's not fair, then people don't feel as guilty about,
Right.
which is a it is theft in a lot of respect, but but I will say that the when you make it so arduous
Yeah.
and so expensive, people don't feel that bad.
Right.
And it's not like you're robbing a bank or doing something that you should, it's
No.
it's a little bit different than that. So, but yeah, I don't know, whatever. I pay for all of them.
I mean, look, when Stream East, got caught, it was major news because that was the one place people kind of flocked to for those, off-brand broadcasts that still got like, allowed them to get their fix, if you will.
Yeah. Yep.
But
100%.
what what do you think people get wrong about sports media coverage? I'm very curious about this because like I feel like people will see it and, sometimes wonder like, "Oh, why are they talking about like the broadcasters on like is that actually the story people want to read?" And I'm curious, what do people get wrong about the beat?
So, couple things. I would say, well, number one, if there's a story, like I always do a review of the Super Bowl,
It's
broadcast.
It's
It's
always
not
a
like we
great
don't have.
piece.
Thanks, man. It's not that we don't have another 100 stories about the game. So it's not
Yeah.
like it's not an either or question. So, if you don't want to read about Mike Tirico and company, there's a million stories that we had about, at the Athletic and other places that you can go,
Mhm.
about the Seahawks and the Eagles. Excuse me, Seahawks and the Patriots. And so when you so misnomers, I would say a couple things. Number one, for me, it's never personal. Like,
Of
I've been
course.
doing this a long time. I do think people think it's like it gets personal. Like, my job and your job and anybody who does any type of reporting or interviewing is to try to give a full reflection of who that person is or what they're talking about, or like, and as honest and as clear. So if you're writing about somebody who's like a narcissist, um, who maybe was a talk radio host in New York, and maybe not narcissist, that might be too strong, but who has some narcissistic tendencies, and you reflect that, that's what it is. That doesn't mean you don't like the person. It's just that's how the person comes across. And so, uh, in general, sometimes people might think that you have an agenda, some sort. And my agenda is to who I work for and just being as fair. I try to be as fair as and honestly, like I don't no surprises
Of
for the
course.
people I cover. But I do think that, especially with the internet, and I think you could see that with media columnists over the years sometimes, it's very easy to kinda never talk to anybody, be very critical, not fully try to
Yeah.
understand stuff. I think trying to understand things, especially nowadays where everyone can have an opinion, is
Totally.
really kinda um, is what you really wanna try to do, is how can I tell you more of what's really happening as opposed to, um, uh, just my opinion.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. It is easy to I think I've certainly seen people do this. Like it is easy to watch a broadcast and write a column about, if somebody was critical about the broadcaster calling that game. I mean, it's been done all the time, but, that's just like the noise that is put out. And it's, not always warranted. But
100%.
so streaming aside, the world of sports media aside, when you shut the laptop for the day, what are some things that you are doing to kind of stay true to yourself and get some of your personal time back because it is so consumed by the media mothership that is running our daily lives. But what are some things that you're doing outside of work to stay grounded and true to yourself?
Yeah, so well, first off, yeah, the phone unfortunately sort of never stops.
Yeah.
So,
I don't even want to
that's
ask your
something.
screen time.
Yeah, it's all you just I mean, sometimes people call or text and, depending I'm pretty good about getting back to almost everybody. But if certain people you really want to get back to because you want them to get back to you when you want them
Of
quickly.
course.
So if they reach out to you. So anyway, so that takes away. But I have a couple dogs, love taking hikes. That's
Love it.
it's something I do I try to do every day. So yeah, I work out, so there are things it's I work from home, so I think one thing that people and I've done it before COVID, like when you cover baseball, you're home a lot of the whole off season.
Yeah.
So my career, I've really not, very early on I was in the office, but I really haven't been in the office ever consistently. And so um what I would say is that, yes, working from home is great, but you have to figure out how to not be home at work. And what I mean by that is
Ooh.
you always
I like
are
that.
it's very like I can't it's gonna sound very spoiled. I don't mean it to sound weird, but
No.
like I can't really do a staycation, where you stay home because it's
Yeah, me
just too
neither.
easy for me to. Well, yeah, I think most people probably, but especially if you work from home, because then I get a text and it's very easy just to go up to my office and just write the story up. By the time I tell five people like, "Hey, you guys can work on this," or "I heard this," by the time it's almost easier just to write it than to try to explain it to other people who maybe might be working.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just simpler.
I think COVID ruined the staycation.
Yeah, I think if you work from home, if you don't work from home, I think it's possible. If you're a 5-day a week in the office person, then I think coming home because the
Completely
thing
different
about it.
story. And I agree with you
Yes.
there.
And I think also the thing about it is, you know, and this is also the difference between covering baseball. Like if I went to Yankee Stadium and I covered a day game and I come home. Now at ESPN, you could be on the radio or TV, but let's just say you're not doing that night.
Yeah.
You're done. Like the work was left there. For me, the there's always something to watch, and, like, I watch
Sure.
differently, like, I'm not trying to act as if I'm not digging ditches, it's a lot of fun to watch all these
Y
things, but when I
yeah.
watch, I'm off like, my brain just works, like, it just is always, like, thinking and evaluating, I don't know, that's how my brain works, just because
Me
same
too.
thing? Yeah, there you
Yes.
go. And so, that is a good thing, but it does make sports sometimes feel a little bit more like work a little
Yeah.
bit. Now again, not I just wanna make it as clear as possible for anybody
Please.
listening, is that it's not I'm not saying that's hard or anything that anybody should
Yeah.
say, "Oh my god, how do you do it?" No, I'm not saying that. It's just a little bit different, you know, when you wanna go do something, like, on a weekend, with your family or whatever, and it's a NFL playoff games, I have to explain they know, like, my family's
Of
great, I'm
course.
so fortunate, but like, I can't just go sit in a bar and watch the game. Like, I have to watch, I gotta concentrate, I gotta be able to hear, not only because I wanna do the best job, but I owe it to the people that I'm talking about to give them my full attention. Because
Absolutely.
nobody would want Dylan would not want someone to listen to their podcast for 3 minutes and then give an opinion on it without giving it a full run and being like, let me hear the podcast, in its entirety,
I'd hope people
hopefully a
listen to
couple
more than 3
podcasts
minutes.
before they evaluated you. You wouldn't want
Yeah.
that. So I always say this about anybody who writes or talks about other people. It's really good if you get written or talked about at some point, because you kind of understand how important it is even more to be correct,
Yes.
and fair. I mean, because there's no such thing as really objectivity. That's a misnomer from journalism past.
Yeah.
There's
That's
fairness.
gone.
Well, it's not even because it never really existed. I think it was all BS to begin with. Because if I did a
But
story
fairness
about
did.
no
Fairness is always a
fairness still applies.
yes,
You should be
absolutely.
fair. You should be
100%.
fair forever. But here's why there's no such thing as really objectivity. If I was doing a story on you and I interviewed you, I'm going to subjectively choose what I think the most important thing to lead the story with. So
Yes.
that could be your greatest accomplishment and how amazing you are, or it could be maybe something that wasn't as great. That's a subjective opinion. Now, the goal and what I try to do and what journalism should try to do is be fair.
Mhm.
Look at the facts fairly and not have a point of not take a slant, not come in with I'm going to go with this angle and this is what I'm looking for. Like I don't really like
Right.
stories where we decide in a meeting this is what we're going for and then try to prove it.
Yeah. I understand what
Again,
you mean.
you know what I mean? It should really go the other way around. Go do the reporting, come back, let's discuss what we found out. And it might not have been what we thought, which is even better story, generally speaking,
True.
as opposed to we just think this and let's go prove it. So that's um my long-winded way of saying that.
No, I understand the perspective and I definitely appreciate it. I wish more people had that perspective because I think then it would, I think, instinctively remove and alleviate a lot of the tension that exists within journalism and sports media today because leading with fairness instead of like preaching objectivity, sometimes people try to preach both and it's like you can't always have both. You
But there's no
prioritize
such
one or
thing
the
as
other.
objectivity though. Like it's not that people are biased. See, look, here's the thing about it. I mean,
Sure.
I could go for another 3 hours on this subject
Same.
because it's not even just sports, but I would
I
say,
agree. It's
look,
not just sports. It transcends
eh,
all that. Of
exactly. Mainstream media does make mistakes. So nobody's saying
course.
mainstream media is perfect. It's not. But there is a skill to doing journalism.
Yes.
And there is a again, are there bad journalists? And yes, yeah, there's not. You can, but what
Yeah.
happens is there's a big story out, and some place will make a mistake, and then it's like that one place makes a mistake, and then that everyone says, "Oh, the media stinks." No, no, one place made a mistake. There were
Happens all the
thousands of places
time.
that did it correctly. Then there also are dishonest people who will kill the media and say this and they're slanted and all they do is take everything. I saw it the other day. I had a tweet about ESPN's night schedule post
Yeah.
Sunday night baseball, and the responses were just so um not based in fact.
Hmm.
Like this thing because they're doing women's sports on Sundays. If you understand it, if you have any understanding of ESPN and post baseball on Sunday night, it's an obvious move that they made. They just branded it this for a few weeks. And if people just run wild with it with their own agenda about woke
Yes.
this, woke that, and it's idiotic and it's really
It
unhealthy for
is.
like again, this is just sports, but it actually does go into the political realm.
Hmm.
It's I don't like to just throw terms on people, grifter,
Same.
this, that, because I don't think that's fair, and I also think a lot of people who put those terms on others don't actually consume their work. Like, they don't
Yeah.
like, they might talk about again, I'm not saying they're not
100%.
right, they might be correct, but I do think and again, I'm just using this because an extreme example. I'm not saying it's wrong what people say about Fox News, but I would say that if you're gonna have your big opinion on Fox News, you probably should be watching it a lot, like I was just talking about earlier. Like, I'm not
Hmm.
saying that again, I'm not saying they're not to the right. There's not some stuff, especially the opinion shows at night
Oh my
where
God. Yeah.
they just have a view that is just, not fair.
Yeah.
If you're really being objective, how they would, report on certain people. But that's not even the point though. But if you're going to talk about it and you're going to use that as one of your talking points, to me, you should be watching it. And so you can
Absolutely.
say that this is accurate, not just go by a clip here, a clip there. That's how I look at it. I try to be fair
I
with
understand.
people, and it's hard, especially there's a lot of noise
For
in the
sure.
world. So, but all we have is being correct.
Yes.
Like that's, I mean, Joel Sherman says this to me all you have is your reputation, and so you have to do the best with that
Absolutely.
as you can.
Absolutely. Andrew, the last question I do ask everybody, professionalism aside, your career in sports media aside, your work for the Athletic aside, just you as a person, Andrew Marchand, what's something you like most or admire about yourself?
Well, that's a tough one. What do people say? Give me a couple examples. Give me a good one. Who had a good who had a
respectfully, I'll give you those examples after.
Oh, fair enough. I'll say this.
And there's a reason
Um,
why.
yes, I'll say this, and I'm gonna say this. Um, One thing, and I don't even like talk. I don't really like this. It's a good question. It's a hard question because but I think one thing that you can decide upon is how nice you are as a person, how you treat other people. Um, and I'm not perfect. I don't imply that I'm perfect, but I try to be nice to everyone. In my job, sometimes you're critical, which isn't necessarily nice, but it's part of the job. But I try to be nice to people. And I would say for anybody, you know, how strong you are, how smart you are, how, this or that you are. Those are things that you can control to some degree, but not fully. How nice you are, that's all just a choice. And so to me, I try to be a nice person. And I don't know if I'm not saying I'm successful, I'm not saying any of that stuff, but um if it's something that I'd want other people to say about me, I would want to say, yeah, he's a good guy. I mean, I
Absolutely.
think when you pass away, I always think it's good to think about, people have said this isn't kind of cliche, but think about what your obit would say, or people would say if you pass away. You want to say that he is a good guy. And so that's what I strive to be. I can't say that to answer your full question.
What
I don't know if I
answers it?
admire that myself, but that's what I would strive for.
100%. May we all continue to be nice guys. May we all continue to be fair and correct as best we can and maintain that reputation. Andrew Marchand, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, man, and good luck with everything.
Thank you.